Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
What up, fam? Today's show was not just inspirational and innovative from a business standpoint, but it was also really fun. We definitely laughed a lot. I interviewed Jonathan Shooshani and Sebastian Elghanian, the founders of Joon. That's Joon.io, which is an epic wellness solution for remote work. Through technology, they basically make it super easy for employees to self-direct their benefits. But the trick is, employers get to choose from a plethora of wellness companies that their employees can cash in on, such as Fitbit, the Calm app, Whole Foods, and many others. Well, we'll actually talk about more about the product itself in the pod. But John shares how living a not-so-conscious and not-so-healthy past leads him to love and obsess over healthy food, wellness, people, technology, and how they all connect. Sebastian, who by the way recommended I call him Bass through the interview to just try to simplify things a bit, has a strong financial background and talks to us about their first startup, which was a wellness-focused debit card, and how a memory of a highly inspirational and serendipitous event in a taxi ride shifts this previous business into what Joon is today. I freaking loved spending time with these guys. They are epic co-founders and conscious leaders, and I'm sure you'll love it too. Enjoy the show. What's up, guys? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Sebastian. Thanks for having us.
Hi, Sebastian, it's great to be here.
Right
Sebastian
on.
Sandwich.
Yeah, so for people listening out there, this is the first time I've interviewed another Sebastian. So just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to continue to be Sebastian, and Sebastian's going to be Bass. It was your request. Just want to make that clear.
Yes. Perfect. I'm down.
Perfect, guys. Well, I'm excited to talk about some really cool stuff today, particularly how you guys are changing the game, how you're bringing health and wellness to remote work. But first, I like to start my episodes by asking a question. And I'm going to ask you, John, when was your last oh shit moment? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh shit moment was, I've been recording podcasts like yourself, or like I've been calling it the Joon Founder Series. And it's just putting myself out there can feel a little vulnerable, but it's also a hell yes moment for me because it's fun getting stuff out into the wild.
That's awesome, man. So it's so funny. I follow up my question with what was your last hell yeah moment? And you did it right there on the same time. That's awesome, man. I love that.
I love it.
I'm just gonna ask you.
A rose and a thorn.
Yeah, that's great, man. Bass, what about you? Either or.
I think I had an oh shit and a hell yeah moment at the kind of simultaneously as well. This past week or so, my grandma and my grandpa were both got COVID. But this morning I got on a call with them and they're both feeling great. So the oh shit was when I found out, and the hell yeah is when, today I called them and they're feeling a lot better, no symptoms. They're feeling really good. So that made me really happy.
Glad to hear, man. Very glad to hear. Sending love to them and good vibes and good energy and healing vibes. So glad to hear, guys. So boys, you've known each other for a long time, and now you got a business together. That's pretty crazy. Whoever wants to share how you guys actually met, when and where.
Probably at some bar mitzvah. He was in on one side, I was on one side. We heard about each other through the grapevine, and he was maybe dancing with my girl, I was dancing with his girl, and from there on out, we became friends. Sebastian ended up becoming my neighbor, just a couple doors down from where I am right now. My family's home, and we used to play a lot of basketball growing up.
Yeah.
Nice, man. And so, guys, give me something like dirty. Like do you guys do any pranks on each other? I want anything that comes to mind? Like you guys were playing ball, like with someone balling someone up. Like I want something good. Give me something dirty.
Wow. I remember, John, you at my bar mitzvah, and you were a bit of a bad boy during that party.
Yeah.
There may or may not have been some underage drinking involved.
There probably was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
I think
go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think at one point had like a little fling with one of Sebastian's best friends, and
Yeah.
I remember Sebastian being a great wingman and just like a middleman. From there, I knew we had some chemistry.
You're like, John, I got you, man. I got your back, John. I'll hook you up with the girls. I love it. So, John, actually, you're a yoga teacher now, and you're a co-founder of a health-focused wellness technology company. But your life wasn't always like that. It wasn't always focused on health. And so, can you share that a little bit of that journey with us?
Sure. So I actually found an exercise book, my dad's exercise book from the 1970s when I was probably 12 years old, and it had some diets in the back. And probably at like 13, I started my first like low carb grapefruit diet where I ate 3 grapefruits a day, and was always into like health and fitness from like a more physical, athletic perspective, and being conscientious of my diet. But at some point in college, I hit a low point and kind of had this epiphany where I was like, I need to really take my health into my own hands. I was on the beach watching the sunset with my friends, had every reason and right to feel happy and content, but just wasn't. And at that moment, I was like, there's something going wrong in my physiology, and kind of just went on this journey of like taking good care of myself, surrounding myself with better people and with people who had similar interests and values, taking my career more seriously. And a few years later, I met Sebastian, and it's all history.
So, John, and if you don't mind me asking, is that just because you were just kind of like, you were partying too much, right? Like just having too much fun, drinking, whatever. And like, that's what was kind of, you think, causing you to go that route? Like, this is Conscious Profits Unfiltered. So we get raw here. If you don't want to share something, that's totally fine, but I'm going to ask you. So is that kind of what was taking you down that path of feeling a little bit unfulfilled? Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah. I think it was, the podcast is called Conscious Profits. I just wasn't living that consciously. And I think was sort of in search of something bigger and better, and just living in alignment between my intentions and my own behavior. I wanted to be a healthy person. I wanted to be full of energy. A lot of my journey has been like, how do you optimize your energy in terms of like just feeling as up as you can? And I wasn't always feeling that way, and that sort of was the journey of like trying to figure out how to align those things a little bit more closely.
Nice, man. Nice. I know Bass the other day mentioned something about ayahuasca. Was there like an ayahuasca journey involved in there?
There wasn't. No, not yet. But
not yet.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday when COVID calms down, we can all go to Topanga and
oh man, right on, man. Well, thanks for sharing that, John. Bass, share the story about the AVO Debit Card. So this is obviously one of your first entrepreneurial, one of your first little startups, companies. Maybe not. Maybe it was like your 20th. But I love talking about those beginnings. I like to call them sometimes micro failures, because they're not really failures, because they get you to the next step and you learn so much. But tell me a little bit about the AVO Debit Card. What was that about?
Yeah, so that was a culmination of both John and I's dreams coming together. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, I come from a family of social entrepreneurs. I was always playing at the intersection of finance and behavior change, and really, how do I help people match their positive intentions with positive behaviors, kind of what John is talking about right now. And when John started to share his own life journeys, his own realizations, and his yearning to create technology to help people create greater access and affordability to a better lifestyle, we kind of brought those two things together. So I had this dream of building a conscious bank, of building a socially responsible bank since I was like 4 years old. That's just what I wanted to do. And everyone laughed at me and thought I was crazy. I went to college for it. I studied it. I studied under, some great behavioral scientists. And it was really when one of one of the behavioral scientists who we love and who's an amazing teacher to us, Dan Ariely, he wrote a little, it wasn't even an article. It was like a little snippet inside of a McKinsey newsletter that I randomly got from a girl in my econ class. And it was titled How to Turn Consumers Green. And the whole idea was around how it's an entrepreneur's responsibility to build an environment that helps people make decisions that add value to their lives and the world. So the idea started as, let's start a bank. Then one day I reached into my pocket and I saw I had this Banana Republic debit credit card in my wallet, and I'm like, why do I have this card? Like, I don't go to Banana Republic. Like, they conned me into getting this card because I wanted a couple of t-shirts, and they're like, oh, if you get this card, you'll get, half your t-shirts for free. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was like 16 years old. I didn't know any better. I just got the card and that was it. But now I'm stuck with this card and I constantly have to go back to Banana Republic because they keep giving me discounts. So I was like, wow, this is an amazing mechanism they have going on here but like, what if we did that for businesses that were good, right? What if, not saying and there's anything wrong with Banana Republic, but they're not necessarily changing the world or moving the needle in climate change or, diets or anything like that. So John and I were like, okay, well, what if we created our own card that rewarded and incentivized people for voting with their dollars, for purchasing products and services that help fuel them and help build a better tomorrow. So we started that journey together. I convinced John to quit his job while I kept mine. But then eventually I soon left my work in real estate and all that and dove 120-200% into AVO. We made a lot of mistakes. We tested a lot of hypotheses, and we wouldn't have gotten to Joon and to this well-being benefit if it wasn't for AVO. We would have never thought. I don't believe we would have ever thought about this if we didn't go through the trials and tribulations we did in starting an FDIC insured digital bank credit card.
So that's no joke. So how did that actually work? Like, people were actually getting credited for certain businesses they were spending money on?
Yeah, so we had two things at play. We had our brand partnerships with local and national brands that were willing to give cash back. And then we also had an internal cash back program that we basically would give you like 1% cash back if you go to Whole Foods. Even though we didn't have a relationship with Whole Foods, we still would give you cash for going there and incentivizing you to do that. Obviously, the unit economics were not pretty.
I was kind of thinking about that.
But it wasn't very pretty. But again, if we had taken that risk, and if the people who backed us didn't believe in us and didn't believe in our mission, again, we wouldn't be where we are today. That's
amazing, man. That's really cool that you learned, you took so much from that. And as that transitioned into Joon, there's an infamous taxi ride. You describe a little bit about it on your website. Tell me about this taxi ride.
Yeah, so the taxi ride actually didn't happen between AVO and Joon. The taxi ride actually happened when I was in college.
Okay.
And so it was sort of a reflection as we were making the transition from AVO to Joon. We were really looking at other companies and looking at like how Slack became Slack, right? Like Slack was the founder of Slack was, before that he had created a video game company and he had transitioned. So I was really in search of what's our story and why is this the right way to go? And I started to realize we need to change our name from AVO to something else. Legally, we couldn't keep the same name. And in this search for finding a new name, I remembered this story of a taxi driver who's an Iranian taxi driver who picked me up one random night in Washington, D.C. as I was going to a friend's house. and he asked me my last name. I told him, and immediately he pulled over to the side of the road with tears in his eyes and a smile on his face. He looked at me. I was extremely puzzled, but he began to tell me that he used to work for my family in Iran, and he carried with him a punch card. And that punch card was not only a way for him to clock in and out, but it was also a way for him to put food on the table for his family. Because on the back of the punch card, there was a number. That number represented how many people were in his family. And every time he'd leave work, he'd go to the cafeteria. He'd show the card. He'd get food to feed that many people that night. And that was just one thing that he recounted to me that night that gave him the Joon to survive, gave him the Joon to keep going. And Joon in Farsi, it means love, life, energy. It's also a term of endearment. So, our parents call us Basi Joon,
right?
Joon, Sebastian Joon. So at that moment, I realized, oh my God, my family has been doing, has had well-being benefits before that was even a term. They were doing, quote unquote corporate wellness because it was good business, because they were good people, because they knew the right thing to do, not because it drove profits or anything like that. But they really fostered a community, and the people that were in that community that worked with them really felt that. Even over 40 years later, they still recount that feeling of Joon that they had gotten. So,
and this was experience. So this was your great uncle's company,
correct.
And this random taxi driver had worked for your great uncle, and also tells you, right, that essentially it helped him leave Iran and come to America, correct?
Yes.
And if so, just a little tiny background. So the Iranian Revolution happened in the late 70s, and late 70s or early 70s?
79, yes.
Late 70s, yeah. And basically the only people that could really leave the country and like go get a better life had to be either really wealthy or really well connected. So this man probably wasn't either. So he got that help from your great uncle, right? And so kind of mind blowing, man. So I got goosebumps when you're telling me the story, and you think about, like, you experienced this, but it's crazy how you experienced it at a time in your life that you weren't really ready for that to basically, trigger anything or turn into something. And then years later, as you're looking at how to transition your business, this comes back up to mind to remind yourself of what this is all about, what you really stand for. And now you start to transition into Joon. So John, do you want to jump in here and tell us a little bit about how kind of like where this transition was happening? Like what was the beginnings of Joon?
Sure. So Sebastian and I have always looked at how you can connect the dots and make healthy living and well-being more accessible and affordable. And we even looked back into gym reimbursements from the 1980s and this concept of your employer or your health insurance carrier subsidizing your health and wellness journey. And our idea of health and wellness has really evolved since those times. We have a much more modern and comprehensive view of health and wellness, and now also understand the social determinants of health, not just your physical health, but your mental and emotional health, even how things like transportation or food affect your well-being. And that was always our North Star, and thinking about how do we connect the dots between these people and align incentives in a way where everyone wins. And we started, as a result of that sort of North Star, started to experiment with selling AVO B2B through employers. And the dots sort of connected where we were looking at companies like Slack and Instagram and how they had basically cut parts of their products, cut their feature to really focus on the core functionality of what matters. And for us, we realized that the card was creating extra friction, but companies were still interested in giving these funds to their employees. And even carriers, health insurance companies, were interested in giving these types of funds to their policyholders. And we just followed that curiosity and intuition, and some of it was validated, and created this card-linked reimbursement platform where an employer a carrier could fully customize a program by choosing the well-being categories that are meaningful to them: health and wellness, food, family care, learning and development. Could choose a monthly allowance, could invite employees to join. And then we completely eliminated the administrative burden for the employer because we realized that that was a bottleneck. A lot of employers wanted to do this stuff, but it was a lot of their time and energy. And then for the employee, removing the friction. And that ties back to a lot of the behavioral science and the behavioral economics that Sebastian has really studied and made me also a student of. And thinking about, if you're trying to get people to change their behavior, removing the friction and nudging them, motivating them, pushing them in the right direction in order to make it easier to do those things. Because everyone wants to be healthy. Everyone wants to eat well. Everyone wants to sleep better, but there's things that get in the way: time, money, discipline, priority. And that has been our journey of like finding this problem, finding a better market for it, stripping it down, and then things just started clicking in a way where we didn't have to like force it as much.
I love that, man. So removing the friction and making it easier really is so key. Do you think companies really, I mean, do you just see a big shift where there are more and more companies caring about their people and caring about health?
Yeah, I think, you even look back to like traditional healthcare benefits and things like 401k that are focused on financial health. Companies have been doing that for, I don't know, 50 years at least. And if you look at the healthcare system, so much of it has been focused on solving for like acute illnesses rather than prevention. So I think it's companies care. Companies are now looking to align their values with their compensation and with their benefit. But it's also thinking about, in that evolution from like solving an acute illness to like prevention, who's helping connect those dots? So I think there's this market trend, but then there's also like a gap in terms of how that problem is being solved and how well-being is being defined. And that's where we've been able to see success and growth.
That's awesome.
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, NAUM.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's sebastiannaum.com. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the show.
And so, Bass, how is this just, HR can be a nightmare. How is this helping people, like specifically, like how easy is it to do this? Is it just for like an HR director, or can it work also for like a founder of a small company? Like, can I do this if I only have like 5 employees or even contractors? I was thinking about it. I was like, a lot of the time, like my marketing agencies will use contractors for different aspects, but some of these people we contract, they're working like more than half their income is coming from us. So they're not exactly employees. So I feel like this presents an awesome opportunity for me to also give back to these people that I'm contracting for so many hours a month.
Yeah, actually, Joon was Joon's first client. And the reason why we used it was because we had a contractor who we wanted to really give that person a benefit. So we actually used Joon to do that.
Love it.
We couldn't afford to give him health insurance. And as John was just saying, we really are big believers in preventative care. And
yeah.
In fact, we're trying to really use this term called precision preventative care, which is really having that person understand what it is that they need and going through that journey together with them, and then providing that service of preventative care that they need that's more bespoke to whatever journey they're on at that time, because it's going to evolve as you move on in your life. So yeah, I mean, we specialized in the beginning with the small companies. Tenzo Tea, a small matcha company, was actually our first client, who I'm sure you may have known from our cross-campus days.
Yeah.
And now we've grown to larger companies, but we still really concentrate on that SMB market, which we also think they're the ones that actually are priced out of other wellness benefits or don't have the resources that other larger corporations have. And I mean, I think it's like 47.9% of the U.S. workforce, it works for an SMB, works for a small business. So that's our target right now. Very similar to how Gusto has really dominated that space for the payroll side of things. We're really looking to do that for
and for anyone listening too, just like super clarify it. This is super cool and easy. Like I am an employer and I say, you know, these companies or businesses, I'm going to say that they are, you know, wellness, you know, forward thinking or whatever. Right. And like, I'm like, let's say it's the Calm app and Whole Foods or whatever, you know, healthy foods or healthy restaurants, and potentially other apps that kind of help your mental health. So I'm going to add these to my list. And so then automatically, if my employee or my contractor ties their credit card to Joon, they spend money on the Calm app, I'm going to reimburse them whatever amount of money I choose for them. So super cool. It helps me promote something to my employees or contractors about something that I think could be great for them. I seriously, I always try to like not be so pushy, but I try to figure out a way to tell people that work on my teams to meditate and or do yoga. And it's like, it's really tough to do it sometimes because, you know, if you're just not into it or not sure, it's like, but I know it'll help you, you know, it's like, but now if I credit, you know, let's say $50 a month towards any meditation app, it's like, well, I may as well use it, you know? So pretty cool.
Yeah. And we've seen that every single week, every month, we send out these little nudges, these little emails that if someone has $10 left in their account, we'll recommend that they spend it on a meditation app or another product or service that costs around that much money. Because when you take away the pain of paying, it's now all pleasure, right? You can make that purchase without having to think about, oh, can I afford this? It's now covered.
And Sebastian, that happened to me. Like 10 years ago, I was working at a company when I was sort of struggling with my mental and physical health, and my company offered subsidized yoga, and that's how I discovered yoga, and subsidized meals on site, as well as subsidized therapy. And when the cost was taken out, I finally felt empowered to like really take my health into my own hands. But that's not possible today in terms of on-site activities, especially because of the pandemic and work's becoming more remote and distributed. Your workforce is becoming more diverse. So how do you meet people where they're at in this world? And we're trying to solve that question.
What a great way to instill health and wellness. I love it. Do you think that you guys are only catering to companies that actually care about people's health and their employees' health? Or do you think that you're actually also creating a shift in companies and getting some companies to actually care more than what they did because you're making it so easy and because it's such an innovative way to do this?
It's a great question. I think we're doing both. I think today we've seen that we have customers that were trying to do this themselves manually and it wasn't working. Maybe they were doing wellness reimbursements through Expensify, or they were offering a single subsidized service like ClassPass or Headspace to their employees. And employees weren't using it. They weren't seeing as much uptake because employees are so different and everyone has unique needs and wants to start somewhere different. And then we have employers that are being proactive. They're looking at the job market. They want to recruit and retain top talent and are looking ahead and saying, wow, the past 9 months have been insane. I want to be proactive about taking care of my people, making sure they're happy, healthy, engaged, productive, comfortable at home. And they're also reaching out to us and pulling the trigger. And I think we've started with a demographic of companies that are progressive and that care about these things.
Right.
But the dream is to work with larger companies that have employees that even need this more because they've been maybe putting their health and some of these things on the back burner. So Walmart, Costco, Target, Amazon, if you're listening to this podcast, which you should be, hit us up. We'd love to work together.
Hey, I've got a good friend at HR Amazon, so we're gonna have to do something there. No, I love that, guys, because it's really like that was one of the first questions that came to mind. It's like, I wonder if this is only catering to those people that are already doing good, the companies that already care. But it's like that's like the bigger picture is really just kind of like you're actually causing a shift, because by making it easier, you're really getting some people to consider something that they weren't considering before. And what's really awesome is, I mean, you guys are a conscious company that's actually creating more conscious companies. So you're a conscious company to promote more consciousness. So pretty awesome, guys. And let's not forget though, like, Bass, I know you have a finance background. Like, look, you have to scale the company. You have to make money. Like, if you don't make money, you can't create a difference, right? So it's like, I think that there's this thing where a lot of people think that there's almost like this guilt of like, if I want to make a lot of money or I want to generate wealth, like that's like not right. It's not, I'm not really, being kind. I'm not really being conscious. And I think that that's such a wrong way of, to think about it, because the more wealth and freedom you can generate, the more you can give back. And in this case, specifically to your business, the more you can scale your business, the more, and that does mean that you guys are making more money, but it also means that you're also scaling more health and wellness to employees out there.
Definitely. I think it's important for people to really think about, and honestly, like, listen to Naval Ravikant. If your listeners haven't heard about him before, like, I highly recommend, if you go to Spotify, just search him and listen to how he talks about how money is the result of value creation, and how it's a credit from the world, saying, here's an IOU, you did something good, you provided value to these people, here's a credit, and you can use that credit to then gain value or gain time in your life. And I think capitalism itself has kind of become this bad word. Capitalism has become this bad word, and it doesn't need to be. Really, the way that we should be looking at capitalism is through a conscious lens, is through the interests of all the stakeholders. And I think where it got a bad name is that for many people, this idea of greed is good, or being selfish is what gets you ahead, is actually a a prophecy that will just end up you with less profits. So
it's an old paradigm too. It's an old way of thinking. It's an old way of thinking that a leader must be, greedy and just basically have, like, how can I say it? Like, the only way to gain leadership and to gain progress is by instilling fear in people, because then they'll just do what you say. And it kind of comes from this old way of thinking of leadership, and it kind of transferred into business, like the dog eat dog world. And I think we're really starting to see a shift with companies like yourself and so many other conscious companies out there that are seeing so much progress and success and wealth generation, and also giving back more and more. So it's pretty awesome, guys. So you guys are both awesome examples of conscious leaders. So, John, what do you think are two of the most important traits that a conscious leader has to embody today?
I think flexibility, and flexibility has been a buzzword maybe during the last 9 months during the pandemic, and it's a way that we describe our product because it meets people's diverse and unique needs. But I also think as a leader, you need to be flexible in terms of like wearing multiple hats, right? Like sometimes we're jumping between sales and product and fundraising all in one day. It's giving your employees the opportunity to have more flexible work schedules in this remote first environment where people might be straddling being parents and teachers with their kids at home. So flexibility, and it also pays homage to my yoga roots. So get on the mat and breathe it out and get into your hip flexor.
What's great about that? It's like funny. So I'm not a Tom Brady fan at all. I'm a Rams fan. I'm going to state that out there. Not a Tom Brady fan. However, the fact that Tom Brady is like 41 or whatever years old and still like the top of the game, he claims that it's literally 100% mobility and flexibility. He's not lifting weights. He's not doing any of that stuff in a sport that you have the strongest humans lifting all these weights. Like he just changed it. He knows that it's flexibility and mobility. So just kind of going off of your yoga thing and going back to business, flexibility is huge. I don't think it's a buzzword. I think it's a thing. Like you have to be flexible.
He's also amazing as it pertains to diet and eating, and him and Giselle Bundchen are on top of the game.
No tomatoes, no strawberries, no inflammatory. Yeah. Anyway, that's another podcast. Bass, what about you? Would you like to share one or two traits that you think a conscious leader must embody today?
I think being grateful and expressing gratitude is extremely important for the little things, for the big things. It's something that we do inside of our own company that's been extremely powerful from the very, very beginning. Before John and I had a business, we do something called the weekly dose of G, and every Friday, and this is, I got to really give credit to John here. This was, I don't know how he came up with this, but it was a beautiful exercise that we still do to this day, where weekly dose of G, the G stands for gratitude. And on Fridays, usually before Shabbat or at night, right before we go to bed, we express to each other what we were grateful for that week. And it could come in the form of an email, a phone call, a voice note, a text, whatever you feel comfortable with. And that to me has been something that I never grew up with something like that. My parents are both really tough, hardworking people. They don't really talk about their emotions or gratitude very much. And John really introduced that to me, and then now to our culture and our company. And if there's ever a fight or a disagreement or any tension, it's all completely subdued and resolved on Friday. And that's something that you don't need to just do on Fridays. It's something that now it's sort of embedded in us every single day, where if there's a moment that you're reflecting, you can reach out to that person, that team member, and say, hey, I really love that you did this, or you're really grateful. Like you don't know that you taught me something, but you did by doing this. And that has been something that has empowered me as a leader, and it's been amazing. So
I love that, because it's not just being grateful or feeling grateful, but expressing the gratitude. And you guys took that to a whole different level, man, because expressing it's got a whole different energy behind it, and it inspires everyone else inside your company to continue to express that. And the more you express it, the more you feel it, and it's this like snowball of gratitude.
Yeah.
Really awesome, guys. I love it. Where can listeners get a hold of you? Or should they follow Joon on Instagram, your website? I'm going to have all the links for anybody that wants to listen, obviously, below here in the notes. But if you guys...
Sebastian's phone number is... Call us, text us. But our LinkedIns, we're pretty active there. If you want to get in touch, Jonathan Shooshani Sebastian Elghanian. Our website is joon.io. If you want to just stay tuned with the latest, and you could subscribe to our newsletter or our email, and just reach out, say what's up. We'd love to chat. Sebastian, we're a huge fan of you and the work you're doing, from your agency to your podcast, and we look forward to getting together in person.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for being on, guys. Seriously, just keep doing you. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit sebastiannaum.com for more content, and follow me on Instagram at sebnaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.